DNA evidence suggests 75% of modern Indian ancestry traces to migrations that academia still refuses to definitively name. This genetic revelation has ignited the most explosive archaeological debate in South Asian history, one that intertwines ancient chariots, sacred texts, and modern politics in ways that would make the original migrants themselves recoil in disbelief. Somewhere between 1500 and 1000 BCE, the Indian subcontinent experienced a transformation so profound that its echoes still reverberate through university lecture halls, political rallies, and family dinner tables today. The question isn't just academic, it's existential. Who were the Aryans, and did they migrate into India, or were they always there? To understand this debate, we must first journey back to a time when the Indus Valley civilization, one of humanity's earliest urban societies, was mysteriously declining. Picture vast cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, with their sophisticated drainage systems and standardized weights, slowly emptying as their inhabitants scattered across the subcontinent. Into this vacuum stepped peoples who would reshape the cultural DNA of an entire civilization. The traditional narrative, constructed by 19th and early 20th century scholars, painted a dramatic picture. Horse-riding, chariot-driving warriors from the Central Asian steppes thundered into India around 1500 BCE, bringing with them the Sanskrit language, Vedic religion, and a social hierarchy that would eventually crystallize into the caste system. These were the Aryans, a term derived from the Sanskrit Arya, meaning noble or honorable. But here's where the story becomes complicated, and why tempers flare in academic conferences across the world. The evidence for this migration comes from multiple, sometimes contradictory sources, each telling a slightly different tale. First, there's the linguistic evidence, perhaps the most compelling piece of the puzzle. Sanskrit, the language of the Vedas, belongs to the Indo-European language family, sharing deep structural similarities with Greek, Latin, Germanic, and Celtic languages. This suggests a common ancestral language spoken thousands of years ago, somewhere in the Eurasian steppes. As these early speakers dispersed across continents, their language evolved into the diverse tongues we know today. The presence of Indo-European languages in India strongly suggests that speakers of this ancestral tongue did indeed migrate southward. Then there's the archaeological evidence, which reads like a detective story written in pottery shards and horse bones. Around 1500 BCE, new cultural elements appear in the archaeological record of northern India. Horse remains, spoked wheels, and a distinctive type of pottery called painted greyware. Horses were not native to the Indian subcontinent, yet they feature prominently in Vedic literature as symbols of power and speed. The Rig Veda, the oldest of the Vedic texts, mentions horses over 200 times and chariots nearly as frequently. But the most revolutionary evidence has come from an unexpected source: ancient DNA. In recent years, geneticists have extracted genetic material from skeletons across Eurasia, creating a molecular map of human migration that spans millennia. These studies reveal that sometime between 2000 and 1000 BCE, there was indeed a significant migration of peoples from the Central Asian steppes into the Indian subcontinent. This genetic signature, sometimes called the steppe ancestry, can be found in varying degrees across modern South Asian populations, with higher concentrations in northern India and among upper castes. Yet for every piece of evidence supporting migration, critics raise compelling counterpoints. Where are the destroyed cities that would indicate conquest? Why is there such cultural continuity between the Indus Valley civilization and later Hindu traditions? How could a relatively small group of migrants impose their language and culture across such a vast and populous region? This is where the debate transcends academia and enters the realm of identity and politics. In the early 20th century, the Aryan migration theory became entangled with European colonial narratives and, tragically, with Nazi racial ideology. The term Aryan was hijacked and twisted into a racial category, bearing no resemblance to its original meaning. This dark history has made any discussion of Aryan migration politically charged, particularly in India, where some view the theory as a colonial construct designed to diminish indigenous achievements. The alternative theory, known as the out-of-India hypothesis, proposes that the Indo-European languages originated in India itself, spreading outward to the rest of Eurasia. Proponents argue that the sophisticated urban planning of the Indus Valley civilization demonstrates indigenous innovation, and that Sanskrit literature contains geographical knowledge suggesting its composers were intimately familiar with the Indian landscape from the Himalayas to the ocean. Modern scholarship has largely moved beyond simple invasion narratives toward more nuanced models of cultural exchange and gradual migration. Rather than a dramatic conquest, most researchers now envision a complex process involving multiple waves of migration, intermarriage with local populations, and the gradual adoption of new technologies and cultural practices. The migrants weren't necessarily warriors bent on domination, but perhaps pastoralists seeking new grazing lands, traders following established routes, or communities displaced by climate change in their homelands. The genetic evidence supports this more complex picture. Rather than wholesale population replacement, the data suggests admixture, the blending of incoming steppe populations with existing South Asian groups. This mixing created the genetic diversity we see in modern Indian populations, with different regions and social groups retaining different proportions of various ancestral components. Perhaps most intriguingly, recent archaeological work has revealed that the transition from the Indus Valley civilization to Vedic culture wasn't as abrupt as once believed. Many Indus Valley traditions, urban planning, craft specialization, trade networks, continued in modified forms. The incoming groups didn't simply replace existing culture, they merged with it, creating something entirely new. Today, the Aryan question remains unresolved, not because of insufficient evidence, but because the evidence points to a reality more complex than any simple narrative can capture. The ancient migrations that brought new peoples, languages, and ideas to the Indian subcontinent remind us that human civilization has always been a story of movement, mixing, and mutual transformation. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and subscribe for more untold history every single day. See you in the next one.